In today's video, we're going to be building the doors and the drawer fronts. I'm going to glue everything up, install them. I'll show you how I install the hinges and the hinge plates, a little trick for that. But I'm going to get right into it. Let's get started right away because there is a lot of work to do and I got to get going with this.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're here for the first time, I hope you guys will consider subscribing and being part of the channel. There are plenty of videos out there for everybody. I have so many on this channel. And we're going to get started today on making these doors and drawer fronts. And the way I do it is I select the straightest boards that I've milled up previously on off days that I'm not working on any projects in the shop or anything like that, or I'm not doing any installs on a client's home. I'll take the straightest boards that I've milled up and I'll select them for the process. The first thing I do is start off with these oversized boards, but cut them to rough length. Just makes it easier at the joiner to straighten one edge. And what I do is I mark off the edge that I hit with the joiner, just in case the other side's looking really good. I don't want to mess that up on the table saw when I rip these down to the final dimension that they're going to be. So you can see here, passing it through the joiner gives me a beautiful, straight, and clean edge. And then I can bring it over to the table saw and I can rip it to the width that I need. In this case, I'm making these 70 millimeters wide. That's roughly 2 3/4 inches wide for the rails and stiles. And once I have them ripped to 70 millimeters, I bring them over to the bench and I put a little post-it note on them and I mark the faces of what's going to be drawer parts and door parts. This way I don't get turned around and mix things up. I mean, you're going to see this. Right now I have like 44 pieces that I have to cope and then run a profile on at the shaper. But a lot of times I'll have 88 to 125 pieces. And if you don't mark those, you're really going to be in trouble. So now I'll just refer back to the plans and cross-cut everything so I have the final dimensions on the rip and the cross-cut, and everything's going to be ready for me to put the profiles and the copes on the shaper, which I'm going to pull out right now. I have that on a mobile base.
Okay, so I want to take just 1 minute here really quick to explain the difference between a shaper and a router table. This is a 3 horsepower shaper. Now what this does is it allows you to use bigger cutter heads than you would on a normal small router table. The way I used to make my cope and stick doors was on the router table, and it took forever because of the fact that even if you're using a higher horsepower router, the router bits are only so big, so the cutter heads they don't allow you to do deeper cuts and remove material fast as something that's 3 horsepower and has a 3/4 inch to a 1 inch spindle on it. Now this bit that I have on here, or I should say cutter head because it's a cutter head, it is reversible. So everything is all on one setup, which makes things quick too, because once I set this up for doing the cope cuts on the rails, I'm going to just reverse the cutter heads and move the bearing to the top without moving the fence at all. The fence is set up, that's it. It's a one setup deal. All I have to do is loosen this, switch the cutter heads around, and then I can run my sticking cuts for the profile so that the cope and stick will be done. So it's a lot faster for the setup, and you'll see it's a lot quicker to run the pieces through here. And I'm using solid maple for the rails and stiles. On a router table, it's those bits, and a router that's even 1.5 horsepower that struggles. A 3 horsepower motor spinning this spindle at the high RPMs that it does, between 7,000 or 10,000, depending on the size of the cutter head, it's going to rip through this stuff and leave a nice clean cut with these carbide heads. This is my coping sled. I got a coping sled because my hands were getting really tired of running all these pieces through and trying to hold them on a square piece of wood the way I used to do it on the router table. And I wish I had a power feeder when I'm going to run the stick profile here. It would be ideal because the power feeder, you just put it in there, the wheels take over and it runs it for you. You get perfect results. So I'm still working on that. But for now, I'm going to have to make do with what we have. So
Now, the coping sled's pretty cool. You just put it right into the sled, you press down the clamp, and then you run it right along the fence with the guide that it has. And it's just really fast, and it gives you a perfect coped edge on there. And I really should have done it a long time ago because it's effortless on my hands. When I was making these cope and stick doors on the router table, which I did a video a couple of months back, and you saw me hold it against a square piece of wood, and you really got to grip it in there, and your hands just get tired when you're doing this much of the work. Which brings me now to the second point, is where I'm running the stiles through and getting the profile on the edge here, which I also have to do on the rails as well later on. But this is where the power feeder would really come in handy. You just have it set close to the fence, you push it in, and the wheels take over and they run it through, and you get a perfect profile every time. Eventually I'm going to have to get it, just not right now.
All right, so I want to explain the next part where I have a separation rail for the large doors that are going to go on top of the closet. So we have the drawer face on the bottom, which is a normal standard drawer face. It's going to have the profile on one side of each of the inside, making up that square or rectangle, whatever shape it's going to be, and that's going to sit on the front of the drawer. Look like any standard normal door or drawer front. Well, for the upper door, it's going to be really large. I need to separate it. It's going to be almost a 6-foot door. So what I need for the long styles is I need a separation rail in the middle where I can put a top panel and a lower panel to keep the door nice and square and help prevent it kind of from warping. So what I've done is run the profile for the door on both sides so that it gives me the look I'm going to need as looking as a frame and panel door when I have the center panel on the top and the center panel on the bottom. This is going to go in the center of that long door. So basically just what I'm going to do now is take my piece that I have all marked up as a double rail, and I'm going to run the profile on one side. Then I'm going to rotate it around, keeping the same face down, and then run it through on that side, and it's going to give me that double profile that I need with the groove on both sides. So this way you can house that panel on the top and the panel on the bottom.
One thing you got to make sure when you're working with a shaper, when you're running your profiles through, you have to make sure you're spinning the piece end for end and not flipping it over. Because if you don't run it on the same face down to the table, then you're going to have a profile on one side, and then if you flip it over and you use it on the second face, you're going to have a profile on the opposite side, and you're going to ruin all of your hard work. Now, if you remember a few weeks ago, I actually did a short video here. You can see a roller stand now from Maxiwa. That's my brand partner. They sent me that roller stand. They were doing a promotion that if you bought this saw, you were getting that roller stand for free. It was a $300 value. I'm not sure if the promotion's still going on, but I can tell you right now that Black Friday is coming, and they are having their Black Friday sale. I think it already started. Definitely make sure that you check on that, because you can get that stand probably on sale, and it's worth a lot more than $300. The thing is great. You can see here that I sanded the first panels before they go in. You definitely want to make sure you sand your center panels before you put them in, because you're not going to be able to sand them down later. Now we're just getting to the glue up, and it's just a process. I keep the long style down on the bottom, put some glue, put the first panel in with the top rail, and then the center rail, and then the next panel goes in, and then the end rail will go in, and then I cap it off with the other long style. And then you just, clean it off, get some clamps on the ends, get a little bit of pressure, and the way you're going to get perfectly centered on all of these doors to get that center rail even on everything and look perfect all the way across is to use a spacer. And you can see I have a piece there. It's cut exactly to the dimensions I need in length, and I'll put that in place, and I'll make sure everything touches perfectly. That's how I know I'm dead center, and then I'll clamp it up. And then I'll always take a measurement to double check.
Okay, so I want to stop for a second here, and I just want to take a minute to explain something with these hinge plates that I'm using. So you can see behind me I have the Maxiwa line boring machine. Now I used that in the previous video to drill all of these 5mm holes for the adjustable shelf pins. Well, these are all 37mm back, and they're all spaced out 32mm on center, which makes it perfect for these hinge plates, Bloom hinge plates, that are going to be used with the clip top hinges that I'm using, and they already have 5mm Euro screws installed. It's going to be a little hard for the camera maybe to focus on this. Let me see if I get myself out of the frame. Those are system screws, and those are already installed on these plates. And you can take them out if you want, obviously, but the really cool thing about using this system with the 32mm and having the line boring machine is now the holes for the hinge plates, you can see they're already drilled out for me. They're already pre-bored. So these are going to just slide right into those existing holes where I want to put them, and then I can match them up to where I'm going to put the hinge cups on the doors. So let me show you how easy this is to install. We're going to be using 4 hinges on these doors just for the length of them. If they were a little bit shorter, then I can get away with 3. But in this case, we want to make sure that everything is going to stay true, like I said, so we're using 4, and that's as per the manufacturer's specs. Always make sure that you look at your manufacturer's specs when you're going by the weight and the length of a drawer. In this case, the length requires 4, so that's what we're going to be using. So, like I was showing you on the hinge plates, those 5mm Euro screws are actually protruding behind the plate a little bit, so they're kind of like sticking out. All you got to do is take your hinge plate, and you'll see because of the Euro hinge screws sticking out, those 5mm system screws, because they're sticking out already, those will slip right into the existing shelf pin holes that I drilled with the line boring machine. And then it's just a matter of tightening them up and not having to worry about squaring anything up too, because these holes are already perfectly squared up 37mm from the front of the cabinet. So I got that in place. I had that little tick mark where I needed to put it in, and now I'm going to install it where I have this tick mark right here. Those are going to slide right into those holes, and then that's it. I got them all adjusted. Now I just got to screw in the rest of the plates and I'm done. I can take my door, clip my door into the top and the bottom because I have those set on the machine, the hinge boring machine with a stop block. And then what I'll do is take a real world marking and just make a little tick mark where I have to drill out these other ones. So this way everything falls into place when I install the doors.
So this is really simple, and I did a video a couple of months back on these clip top hinges. So the first thing I do is I use a hinge boring machine, which is, it's not a great machine, but it works. And then I pop in the clip top hinge, and then I put it in on the top and the bottom, and then I just make a mark in the center of where the plates are on the other two hinges. Then I go back to the hinge boring machine, I go to my mark, I drill out and bore the hole for the hinge on the door in those spots where I made the mark, and then once I install the hinges, I can go back and everything will, in theory, clip right back onto the plates, and it'll be pretty much a breeze to install 4 hinges, where you know it's not really simple if you've done this before. Anything more than 2 hinges, it kind of becomes a little bit of a pain in the butt. But this is a tried and true way to do it, and it's actually working for me. So.
Okay, so I got the first door on. All I have to do now is just the same procedure for the rest of the doors. So you can see the design now, how this door is going to open this way. This will be the closest to the wall. And then these 2 doors will open this way. And then these 2 doors on the end will open like that as well. So I'm going to just stack up and place these drawer fronts here on a shim underneath, just for the sake of the video here, because I still have a lot to do and I can't install the drawer fronts. Obviously they have to be finished first. What I have to do is install the toe kicks, screw those to the floor and to the wall, and I have to level all the cabinet boxes. So for the sake of the video here, I want you guys to see what this is going to look like when it's all buttoned up. And you'll be able to see also from the floor not being leveled, the gaps between the drawer fronts and the doors, even though they look really good right now. On camera, I can see, to my eyes standing right in front of them, they are off. I mean, not completely off, but enough that I would never install anything with those kinds of gaps. It would have to be perfect to me. I use spacer blocks for that reason, so that everything is perfect to the human eye. When you look at it, you want to see everything nice and even and perfect the way it should be, the way you would expect when you get a quality cabinet built for you from a professional woodworking shop or cabinet shop, such as what I am. Now, obviously, there are always doors this large with 4 hinges or even 3 hinges, depending on the length of the door and the weight of the door, are always a little more difficult to do. But if you take just a few more minutes, because it didn't take much more time, even with moving the camera around and showing you what I was doing, 27 minutes to get all of these doors bored out for all their hinges and installed back on the cabinet. And that was with me moving the camera around when I was installing each door. And that machine, that hinge boring machine I have, is not the greatest. It gets the job done, but especially on big doors like this, it's a little cumbersome and you have to kind of find ways to balance those pieces on there because it's very limited. A bigger, more expensive, obviously elaborate machine with crank adjustments and things like that. Obviously, it's much more ideal than the hinge boring machine I have, but right now that's not in the budget, so I'm just going to be sticking with that. If you have a handheld unit, to drill out those hinge holes, then that would be also ideal, because you would just move that small jig over to the line, clamp it down, and then do it by hand. But that is much more time consuming because you're drilling every hole by hand. So you got to remember, I'm doing this as a business. YouTube doesn't pay me enough to not do this as a business and actually have clients. So I'm not doing the finish on camera for this, because I have videos where I do the finish. I mean, honestly, I would love to make these videos really long and start to finish every little inch and every detail of everything that I do. But when I have lead times with clients and I have to get them done, it's just not possible. So like I said, some of these other YouTubers out there that have been fortunate enough to have such a big following that they can do this just for themselves, and they have people editing their videos and people working for them and things like that. I don't have that stuff. So I'm trying to squeeze you guys in with the videos as I do what I'm doing to actual clients' homes. This is not from my house. So I don't have all the time in the world to do this. I got to get this out. I'm doing this in between this built-in closet job, which still has so much more to go. And then I'm switching back and forth to a kitchen job that I have to do as well. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for joining me in my shop today, and I hope you guys will join me next time. I have so many more projects to do, so many more builds. I still have stuff in the shop that I need to build for myself. I need to put cabinets up in here for storage. I'm still working out of some cardboard boxes down there underneath my miter saw. I want to make a nice miter saw station. I need to make a new assembly table. And it's just a downpouring of everything that needs to get done while I'm doing these jobs. So I hope you guys will stick with me and be with me along for the ride, because it's getting a little crazy, and just jump on that roller coaster with me, because it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.